Okay, you are now listening to another session of INTJ Forum Type Interview. I'm your host, TGA, and tonight I'll be interviewing Hank Morgan. Hank, you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Hank Morgan. My real name's Jay, and I think I'm an INTJ.
All right, I guess we'll find out hopefully a little bit from this interview. So, kind of diving right into it. In terms of MBTI, do you by any chance remember when was your first time being exposed to it and learning that you're an INTJ?
Originally, my first time was when my sister, who is a was a psychology student, showed me it, and I thought it was kind of bogus. Then several years later, I was applying for a job, and they actually required me to take the MBTI as part of the application process, which I thought was kind of strange, but I went with it. I got INTJ. I didn't get the job, but I was curious about it, so I looked into it and was I'm pretty surprised at how relevant I thought the descriptions were. And then eventually I found INTJ Form and made an account about 2 years ago there.
Okay. Well, since you just kind of found out through that testing and going
hmm
for the job, do you feel it weighed into their decision in terms of giving you a job offer?
I have to think so. I know I've read tons of stories about INTJs having difficult work situations, being hard to work with. So it's possible. Might not be the ideal kind of type they were looking for.
Mhm. Well, what kind of work what you were applying for?
That was a medical company that was looking for a copywriter to work with them. Yeah, I'm kind of a unusual INTJ in a bit, and I have a kind of an English degree and kind of a publishing background in that sense. I've actually been doing IT the last few years as a web content manager. Kind of planning a career change soon though to kind of get more into writing, publishing stuff. So don't
Okay.
know really how that's going to go yet. That's what I've been up to.
So in terms of writing and publishing, what
Mhm.
kind of, I guess, are you more interested in the marketing side, or do you have something else in mind?
Um, Really the whole thing. I've been really into web comics. I do a webcomic review site, and I've been really kind of talking to a lot of people involved in the community and kind of discussing like kind of where the medium's going. It's really everything's very new in that. So I've been really into kind of blogging and just running. I've run other projects before, like a magazine and some different creative projects. So really just, I mean, kind of different stuff. I've done a lot of prose in the past too, but just yeah, it's a variety of creative writing and some other stuff related to that.
Mhm. So your specific mode or passion in terms of writing is more on the, I guess, social media end in terms of like just blogging or
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm really into blogging and like learning a lot about just kind of different ways that the internet is kind of this new medium, kind of in contrast to print, and in a sense it's very independent and people have to do their own publicity. So I've been kind of using Tumblr and Twitter and trying to just kind of get a feel for that lately. But I really like the internet in general and the way it lets people do their own thing. It's very independent. You can do what you want. That's like really big for me. Um, Again, I'm kind of don't like the idea of big corporations having controlling print and stuff like that in the media. So it's really kind of exciting. I can do whatever I want online.
Mhm. So do you feel like you would, well, if you have the resources to, instead of working for someone else, kind of like where you are in right now, but be a independent blogger yourself? Is that kind of your vision?
I've considered it. I do kind of have issues with I'd say marketing myself in that I'm just very I'd say independent since I really do what I want. Again, doing a review blog is very unorthodox and that kind of tends to upset a lot of people. And I guess being INTJ too, it's like um, it's really something I like doing myself. I really like focusing on the writing. I'd love to do it as more of a professional thing if I could, but um, I'm not confident enough at like marketing myself in order to create a business out of my hobby at this point.
Mhm.
Especially, I'm typically pretty antisocial. Again, I kind of consider myself very self-reliant. That I like learn how to design web pages. I do videos for this site. I do my own promotion. I kind of just geared toward doing everything myself, which is great because I don't really have to rely on people, but also kind of limits what I can do.
Okay.
In terms of just having time and energy as a hobby. To
So, so what initially got you into the world or interested in terms of just social media or internet media in general?
um, yeah, I think the main thing is I'm just generally very very independent. And I think especially in terms of like the comic industry, it's very it's very corporate. It's the American print industry is basically Marvel and DC with like one giant distributor who does it all. So I really liked how I could just do my own stuff online. I've done web comics where I just you did some pretty weird stuff, and it's really a sort of free medium to me where I can really just do anything I want with no sort of boss or restrictions really. It's like whatever I want goes. So I think it's really kind of liberating as a kind of a new way for really anybody to get their work and ideas out there.
Hmm. Okay, that sounds very independent. Is the theme I'm getting from you?
Yeah, I'm really big on that.
Yeah.
Um,
So I
yeah.
imagine, well, next question was going to be, what would be the top three traits that you find yourself kind of being pictured as a very stereotypical INTJ, and I'm going to assume independent is the number one thing for you.
That is one. I don't see myself as working very well with other people. I really kind of have to do my own thing my own way. Even like at my job, I really prefer being able to do things on my own kind of way without a lot of interference. Or and then things like that. In terms of three traits, um, obviously I've struggled a lot with relationships over the years, especially when I was younger. I didn't start dating until I was like 23. So I was really kind of late to it. And so I've kind of had my growing pains through the 20s where it's been pretty complicated. I mean, I guess if you've read any relationships and dating threads, you've seen there's so many issues with like INTJs and dating, but that's been something I really kind of struggled to deal with and just kind of accept my understand my feelings about it because it's not something that comes naturally to me. Um, Dealing with kind of relationships and dealing with people and women, it's very kind of complicated. Um, I think another big trait is just really I would say I'm brutally honest. Um, I'm really focused on getting things accomplished, doing what I think is best. I don't always take people's feelings into consideration as much as I maybe should have or could have. Um, but at the same time, sometimes I think people are being maybe oversensitive just because, I really have a sort of pragmatic view, and I think that's seen as a very kind of INTJ trait, or even maybe the ultimate INTJ trait, that kind of brutal honesty and kind of indifference to sensitivity.
Well, then, kind of going on the flip side, and do you find yourself also sometimes having traits or perhaps habits or views that wouldn't really align much with an INTJ?
Yeah, I do have some. Like I said before, my interest is more been in literature and art, and the humanities, and it seems like a lot of the INTJ descriptions are very focused on more of science, math, engineering, that kind of thing. So I always felt kind of strange that way. It's almost more of like a NF idealist kind of area, but I've just always really been much more attached to humanities. Even though I do have tech background, and I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with more of a stereotypically anti-rational stuff, but that's really kind of my own thing. That stands out the most. I'd say another thing is I think I'm pretty relaxed for an INTJ. I know it's considered easygoing is more of a P thing, but I think personally for me, I've had medical issues over the years dealing with stomach ulcers where I get very sick if I'm stressed. So I think I've kind of taught myself to be just very calm in general as a way to kind of maintain my health. That might be a bit unusual for an INTJ. I know the stereotype is very serious and anal sometimes.
Okay. Well, you do have a reason, a health reason to kind of limit you in terms of the seriousness.
I think so. It's kind of I guess weird because it seems a bit weird on the sort of judging perceiving thing because I feel very strongly that I'm a J. According to really kind of the strict definition of seeking closure, being quick to make decisions and things like that. But I feel I almost have a sort of P outlook on life in some ways, just that I'm very, very relaxed, calm. I like to kind of take things easy. So it's been something I've thought about in terms of my, kind of MBTI self-discovery and kind of just more understanding my my type and considering the options.
Right. And kind of going a little bit better, you mentioned you were holding some of you like idealist views in the humanities, and that might
Mm-hmm.
kind of scratch a bit on the NF side.
Mm-hmm.
With the test that I imagine you've taken a couple of times, more than just the once with the job interview where you had that first exposure or first blush with MBTI.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed a kind of a very close cut? So let's say maybe 51 or 52% T versus F. Has it been that close, or has it just because you hold more of a humanities view that you feel you're kind of more of a little NF?
Well, I've always scored very high T on tests, and I think it's really more of sort of a stereotype um, of the thinking dimension that it's very tied to the science and math kind of thing more. But I think really it's ultimately more of an intuitive thing. Um, with arts, and I've learned that from INTJ form that really a lot of INTJs have interest in playing music, um, literature, art, medium. So I think it's sort of a false stereotype, or at least an exaggerated aspect of MBTI that necessarily INTJ has to be a scientist every time kind of element. And I think Kiersey or someone calls them the scientist type is their kind of nickname too, which I think kind of ties into it.
Mhm. Okay. Well, that's kind of funny enough. It leads to the next question of
Mm-hmm.
the stereotype you feel that just does not fit you at all. So I guess we just kind of brushed over one of them. Do you feel
Mm-hmm.
any other stereotype that you would like to dispel?
Yeah, I mean I like sports, which it seems to be very strange, especially on this forum. There's a few people, but I've always been pretty into I would say watching sports into college football and baseball. So it's sort of a unusual thing. I also exercise pretty regularly, which I don't know. It seems to not be that unusual, but I've kind of I guess paid some attention. I guess 'cause these kind of sensing kind of things. But I don't think it's really enough to make me question my intuition too much. I don't think it's impossible for an intuitive person to like sports, for example. I don't think that's really how MBTI works.
Mhm. Okay. Well, then kind of going into a little bit as to your line of work and
Mm-hmm.
relating to being an INTJ, what other passions do you have other than the whole social media and the humanities side part?
Yeah, I should just clarify a bit. I'm really not like that into social media in a sense. I'm more into blogging and writing. The social media is more something like I kind of have to force myself to do,
Ah,
but it's really not something I like or it comes natural at all. It's more I like really like my dream is if I could just kind of sit home and just write all day would be awesome. But you kind of as a blogger you kind of are forced to do more social stuff
mhm.
to kind of get your name out there. So I think I got, but the question about my kind of hobbies. I'm really into video games. I've been playing games really since like I could hold a Nintendo controller as a kid. So it's always been like a huge hobby of mine. I've been more, I played a lot more in the past, like when I was in college and younger, because I just had more free time. But lately, I've been kind of more, I guess, more mature and adult. I was like stay up all night playing video games, or at least I try not to. But yeah, I'm really into reading. Really just been doing like classic lit lately, like kind of doing some 19th century stuff. Kind of getting to, I like a lot of the old stuff in particular. Um, just kind of trying to get some of the classics in there. I didn't really have time for during my college days. They just would like slam us with a million novels to read, so it was really pretty tough. You begin to say I like I go to the gym pretty often, but yeah, mostly I'd say video games right now. Reading, doing my blogging, and going on TJ Forum is pretty fun too.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that if with a being a dream career, you could
Mm-hmm.
write all day if you could. What would you love to write about, or is it just be kind of any topic you kind of run upon and then just write on that?
Yeah, I really like kind of media and publishing in general. As a field, I just really great. I think the idea of kind of communicating to people and I'm really just the different ways to kind of have a message and kind of discuss different topics. I've worked before in college and at a student paper. I thought that was a really good experience. I was the copy desk chief there doing all the copy editing. But yeah, I mean, I think ideally I would just basically write articles or just write all day. Realistically, I think jobs are going to be more social than that. I can't just probably not just stay at home and do the blogging thing. Although I know some people do that. But yeah, I think working as part of like a publishing team or maybe as like a news organization or something like that would be, I think, really interesting and very challenging. I think it's really important for me that what I do challenges me. Um, and it's one reason I like writing so much is that it lets me really push myself and set high standards for my work. And it's always ways to find new things to write about and different ways to write and just new challenges for me to kind of deal with that way.
And kind of piggybacking on that, what was kind of the most challenging or hardest piece you ever wrote or getting yourself involved in project-wise?
Um, I think one that comes to mind was a review I wrote of this furry web comic called Two Kinds. I don't know if people have heard of it, but I basically viewed it as a pornography comic and ended up being very upsetting a lot of people that I viewed it as pornography because they feel differently about it. So that's been a kind of challenging thing, that kind of having a lot of hostility towards me about something I wrote. That was definitely like the most hate generating thing I've done in my life. So it was a good learning experience. 'Cause I really got kind of more mature in being able to handle this kind of animosity. Um, let's see.
Well, you are dealing with the internet. I mean, hate is kind of a
Yeah,
default
I
mode.
mean, you kind of have to get used to it eventually, and it was just a bit jarring at first.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, hey, I'm just a guy on the internet with an opinion, but so it's a bit of a learning experience there. I did one recently that was really hard, where I kind of did this a kind of political satire review. There was this guy who lived in North Korea for a while and did a comic about his travels, and I did kind of a long kind of a satirical post tying into Kim Jong Il and kind of the dictatorship in kind of a half fiction, half kind of serious way, and it was really fun to do. That was very challenging because it just wasn't my normal kind of writing. I was kind of trying to do much more than a review, and I'm really glad what that came out. But it was just a lot of work, and not a lot of work, but I had a lot to do at work at the time. I was very busy and trying to kind of create this new style, and so it was a challenging kind of thing. I wanted to do something different, and it really stood out to me as kind of weird way of doing it. By the way, my website is on webcomicpolice.com. I should have mentioned that.
Oh, okay, cool. A little plug-in.
Yeah, I don't want to advertise, but I figure people are gonna ask about it.
yeah, well, that's what I was gonna be, my next question of it, what kind of sites do you blog on? But now we know. Okay.
Yeah,
Then,
I did before I did independent magazine. I did it for a few years. That was a really big project to me because that was like I was trying to work with a lot of people, work with a lot of artists on that one, and it was fun, but it kind of burned me out a lot on creating just because it was too much socializing for me, too much micromanaging and trying to deal with people with not being able to do deadlines and just a lot. And it really kind of was a big like, learning experience for me because I realized I really can't try to do this kind of extroverted super leader mode managing all these people all the time. Just kind of why I've kind of become more self-reliant over time, focusing more on my own writing instead of trying to be sort of this editor role and managing with people. But it's kind of a ongoing thing because I'd love to be a little more extroverted and better able to be a leader. But at the same time, I feel it's very contradictory to my nature, and a lot of time I just want to be by myself and just kind of block out the internet and relax. So it's something I'm kind of dealing with as I get older.
mm,
I'm going to be a little more comfortable with that.
yeah. Well, then, in terms of interacting with others and perhaps or being exposed to many other personality types, is there
Mm-hmm.
other particular traits that you see or other personalities that you feel that you would be nice to have, just natural for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been jealous of extroversion in the sense of, being able to, work with people better, being a team, because I really value, what a teams can do. I've always not really had many friends. I've always kind of thought I was kind of a loser in that sense, and that, I'm like, why don't I have any interest in going out and doing all this social stuff that everyone else is doing? But MBTI really helped me with that because I kind of have a context now that I understand the introversion extroversion is divide and how it's not natural for introvert to have quite as much energy to socialize as an extrovert. But aside from that, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with the type. I don't know if I'd really like want to switch any letters necessarily. I don't know. I don't think it's like INTJ is like this awesome super type that's better than everything, but it's just I'm used to it, so
Yeah.
that
Okay. But
this is
then,
what it is.
but what is the one thing that you like as an INTJ you would not ever trade for anything else?
Um, I'd really say sort of my commitment to my own ideals. I said the kind of brutal honesty, but I have very strong opinions about a lot of things. And I'm not like willing to compromise or anything. And I really kind of think it's really important for people to stand up for their beliefs and opinions and do things that are unpopular. And so I'm proud that, I'm kind of just being willing to be myself no matter whether, with the social consequences or, people don't like it.
Mm, okay. Well, then kind of leading to your experience with the forum itself.
Mhm.
And I don't get it. Well, unfortunately for me, or fortunately or unfortunately, depending how when we look at it, I'm pretty only stuck in PC and or political current events area.
Mhm.
What parts of the forum or subforums rather do you find yourself most active in or prefer to be active in?
I think I'm most active in MBTI subforum. I like, trying to type people and just talking a bit on theory. I'd say our relationships and dating is the other one I mainly do, especially because like I really sympathize with a lot of the young INTJ males having relationship issues and lack of confidence in that kind of area because I was exactly the same way when I was in college and didn't want to talk to women and thought I'm gonna be single forever and just kind of those things. So I try to kind of chip in once in a while. I do read politics and current events. I don't post a lot because unsatisfied with how it's been and that I feel there's been a lot of partisan bickering and kind of very extreme views that I just don't really feel like it's a good use of my time a lot to get involved. But I do like to read it and kind of see what's going on. And sometimes I do post. It just depends kind of how much energy and how much I feel like getting into an argument about whatever.
Mhm. Well, you already kind of do a whole lot of writing professionally and most of the day, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I love writing. I could write all day. It's just it's really more of a social energy thing in terms of the forum. A lot of times I just feeling really antisocial. I just don't really want to have a discussion. I'd rather just lurk. It's usually what I'll do is once in a while I'll kind of get a bit more high energy and a bit more extroverted feeling, and I'll probably do several posts or argue with someone on the politics about whatever. But yeah, it's just like I don't really, sometimes I'll just, I'm okay with going just off the grid for like a week or 2 weeks and just not really posting if I'm just not feeling like it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I really like arguing though too. So sometimes it's just like, hey, I'm just gonna get into a bunch of arguments today and just see how it goes. But it just really depends on my mood.
Okay. Then jumping in terms or piggybacking on the debate side, what
Mm-hmm.
would be your most controversial, or what do you think would be your most controversial stance that is kind of unpopular with most people that you think you hold?
Well, definitely in terms of politics, I'm a registered Republican, and it seems like mostly liberal Democrats. So like some of my like libertarianish conservative views, at least economically conservative, and very sort of unpopular. Um, but I think in general, like I'm really fine with just calling people out if I think they're being irrational or um, doing something I don't like, even if I think it might offend them or be kind of interpreted as being mean. Although I really don't think I've ever intentionally been malicious or mean on this site, even if it may come across that way.
Hmm. Yeah, well, it is kind of rough. This is an INTJ form, after all.
Right, and that's actually one reason I like the forum a lot. Is I feel like I don't really have to worry too much about people's feelings. I think if someone's sensitive, they're probably going to leave the forum at some point because it's very sort of rational, NT kind of oriented vibe to it. Even like the other types kind of have to either have a fairly well developed thinking function or just be used to being around thinkers a lot because it is a pretty harsh environment.
Mhm.
But it's nice, again, I can kind of relax and be myself and not have to worry too much about upsetting people.
Yeah. Well, then it kind of continues slightly a little bit on a debate side. Have you ever gotten into a particular argument and actually had your views changed?
Um, I will say, since I've been on NTJ form, I've been getting more liberal. Um, I know I've said I was more conservative, but I'm really, I try to be open minded about it. I really try to hear both sides. So I've been getting a little slightly more liberal. One thing that's changed my mind a lot is about the functions. There's been a lot of really, really good discussion in the NBA subforum about functions, and I've become very agnostic about the functions. Um, even in maybe Jung's original ideas, I just very don't know what to think about it right now. I'm still trying to learn more, and I've really adopted the dichotomy model more. It's been championed by Recful namesake, um, some others. So it's been interesting, kind of seeing my own views about MBTI develop over time to kind of move away from functions.
Okay.
But I mean, generally, I mean, I'm pretty, like I said, I'm pretty set in my ways. I feel like I'm pretty stubborn in a lot of issues, and so I don't expect to change too much of my beliefs. Especially, I'm 29 years old right now, so I feel like I'm kind of at the point in my life where I'm sort of my personality is pretty crystallized. I feel a pretty solid identity by now.
Mhm. And then on the other subform you mentioned, the relationships or the dating part.
Yeah.
And you're seeing a lot of self-reflection with the younger INTJs and being able to empathize with kind of their struggles with their dating life or just kind of getting started.
Mm.
What would be kind of the advice or word of wisdom that you would like to impart on them, or even upon yourself? Let's say, for example, if you could go back in
Mm.
time and
Yeah,
speak
I
to
mean,
your younger
I
self.
feel like it's really just like I'm repeating the same thing all the time, which is really just you have to do and not think. You have to get away from your intuition and your over analysis of things, and just you have to be willing to take action and be willing to make mistakes and risk rejection. Um, because it's really the only way you're going to get out of that what you call analysis paralysis. And it's almost a bit absurd how so many of the threads are almost the same exact thing with the young INTJ males, where it's just like they won't talk to anybody. There was I think a thread about that recently making fun of it. That Deconspire started.
Yeah.
But I find it really interesting that the whole subform in general, just because relationships and people are just such a topic I struggle with. I have low social skills, and it's just always kind of fascinating to kind of see, just because it just does not come naturally to me. And there's a lot of kind of older members or more experienced members who have a lot of good insight about it. There's occasionally a kind of a crazy thread comes up too, like Guppy's threads and or some of the threads about dating. Like there was a crazy thread about like whether men should pay on dates and stuff like that. So it tends to be kind of one of the more um, busier forums. It's probably I think the most active subforum as well,
Mhm. Okay.
or at least
Well,
one of the most.
we are running a little bit over time, but rather
Mhm.
than a kind of a moral scenario here, so the question would then be choice-wise, if you could go back in time and actually impart yourself all this knowledge and wisdom and not have to experience and going through kind of the learning pains, going
Mhm.
back to when you're younger, versus say, you know what, no, even though knowing what you know now, you would still
Mhm.
rather experience and go through the growing pains. Which would be a better choice, or which choice do you think you would go with?
Yeah, actually, I think it's a really important kind of topic for NTJs, because I think dealing with adversity and failures is extremely important for NTJs. I think sort of the type's main issue is a overconfidence and a sort of I think I'm great kind of thing, and dealing with mistakes and failures has been really the best, I think, most important part of my growth as a person, because it's really taught me that I do have limits, and that I'm not always as perfect and intelligent as I think I am. And so I think I would absolutely take every kind of failure or negativity I've dealt with, because I think it's taught me a lot of humility, and taught that no, I'm not as smart as I think I am a lot of the time, and that I really need to be a little more down to earth. I think that's really valuable.
Mm. Okay.
I don't
Well,
know if that necessarily answers the question, but I think it's from my point of view on that. I think it's people sometimes need to really welcome hardship in terms of building them personality.
mhm. Well, it does kind of give you a rationale as to your choice, but just to
Mm-hmm.
clarify, I assume your choice is you would still go through the kind of learning
Yeah,
pain.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, well, we are 33 minutes in, so it's been an absolute
Mm-hmm.
pleasure. Thank you for volunteering for
Yeah,
the interviewing session.
yeah. Thanks for doing it. I hope these people get to know me a little better, because I know haven't been posting a lot on the forum and lurking a bit. And yeah, if anyone has any opinions on my type, feel free to share. I'm definitely curious to hear any theories if people think maybe I'm a not an INTJ or something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm going to imagine they're going to be having a bit of a discussion on your JP or even the NF side, but well,
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, I've never done a type me thread, so
mhm.
it's probably about a good time to get some feedback on that.
All right. Well, I guess we'll find out. I'll be making this post shortly tonight.
All right, well, yeah, thanks again for doing this.
All right.
This is
No.
pretty fun.
Yeah, definitely. You're welcome. I'll stop the recording now.